Right, so this is a little finishing tutorial on how I finished my strawberries. The ones I'm using today are from Deck the Halls Blackbird Designs. These are such little wee gorgeous ones. I have stitched 5 out of the 6. I haven't decided if I'm going to do the 6th one yet, but we'll decide that later. I like odd numbers rather than even numbers. Okay, so this is one that I have fully finished. It is done on a linen that it's just a scrap of linen I had, and I can't think what the name of it was, but it's a very light, like a sky blue. It's stitched in all the Dempsey colours that were called for. I followed the instructions in between Deck the Halls book by Blackbird Designs and Erica Michael's her finishing instructions. So I use a combo of the two for finishing my strawberries. So these two here in my hands are part of their series that I've already finished, and I thought, right, well, I need to film this video. A lot of people have asked me how to finish them. Like I said, I follow the instructions of the designers and just a little few of my own tweaks. As you can see, I've used laces, which I've dyed meters of lace in different colours and shades, just to help match up as much as possible, and different colour ribbons for the very top of them. They're not hard to put together, it just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of confidence, I guess. They're not perfect, and I don't expect them to be perfect. They're handmade. So excuse my voice. It's how they should be. They shouldn't be 100% perfect. I do use a sewing machine to do my main seam down the bottom, and then the rest is all finished by hand. So let's get started, shall we? Pop those ones aside. This is the first time using the camera at this angle with a different tripod, so we're just going to see how it goes. Alright, so this is the book. I'm just going to pop that away. So these guys here are 2 that I have already got to the stage of where I need to for starting to finish them, and I will do those later. But the first thing you do is iron out your piece. Okay, once you've got that nice and ironed, and I will just remove my needles. Once you've got that nice and ironed, always iron from the back if you can. It'll save your stitches a lot better. Alright, so I'm not sure if you can be able to see this. I've made a template that I use for making the strawberries. There is templates in the back of the booklets that you can use. On a couple of the Erica Michael ones, these ones that has all different sizes, so depending on what size fabric you've done, I kind of stick to the same size and I can trim it up and down. So we want to make sure that it's going to fit within this basis here. Okay, so definitely a good size for this one. So on this, I cut out a piece of lightweight interfacing, which will be ironed onto the back. And I use, now this is a New Zealand brand because that's where I live, and it's available at Spotlight. It does come in a different colour packaging now, I think it's black packaging, but it is the Semco light craft weight interfacing. Works great, especially for doing these things. You just want it so that it helps stabilises your stitches and stops the stuffing from coming through. Okay, so I make sure that we're pretty centered with our middle down here. I use, and what have I done with it? I'm kind of filming this on the fly. Let me just because I've got some partly done and some not. I've got kind of bits and pieces everywhere. Just bear with me for 1 second. Okay. So this little thing, yellow thing here is dressmaker's chalk. And I like to use that to guide my lines, and I can see where I'm at. I don't do it on the front, I actually do it on the back. Now I'm going to turn this over, and I have already ironed the interfacing on, okay, but you will easily see, here's my interfacing, it's all ironed on, but you'll see this yellow chalk mark. It's not 100% perfect, because what we do is we place this on the back side, and I just trace it around like this, because I want to know that I'm roughly going to fit it into here. And when I put that interfacing on, I wanted to have a guideline of where it was going to go. I'll just get that little piece of hair out of the road. I'm not sure if that one's mine or the cat's. I think that one might be mine. Okay, so that sits over top quite perfectly. So when we do our sew, we're going to sew this side and this side together. Now when I cut my fabric to trim it down to sew it, I won't sew it in this big piece. I'm going to cut it, and this is where sometimes you can use the second line, is I will cut it about here. I want to leave a reasonable mark. So I'm going to cut it, just eyeball it. You guys can probably hear Kitty in the background. I'm so sorry. She has been fed. You wouldn't think so, would you? She thinks I'm talking to somebody on the phone and that she's going to get attention. Okay. So there's my other lines, and that just helps me for trimming, so I can then trim off and trim around here. Once I've done that, I'm going to then fold it in half, and we're going to line up my two seams. And it does work out quite easily. I'm going to turn this one back in the right way, because I've already done this. Just borrow a chopstick. Okay, I'll turn it back in the right way. So here's my interfacing on here. This is not perfectly done, this one. We go to the side, and you can see where a yellow line was. You can see I've trimmed the edge here, but you can see that we just cut about, I would say, 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit higher at the tops, but about 1/4 of an inch along from that seam part. Right, and we just sew, I sew all the way down this way. I stop at the bottom, I turn it around, and I sew straight back on the same line, because I want to give it double strength. I just find that's a lot more helpful. We then will use our scissors, and we will trim on a slight angle. You don't want to get too close to those stitches at the bottom. I can still see that I've missed my stitches, even though it looks like it's all fraying. It's actually fine. Okay, and you can see we've come. It doesn't matter if we get a little bit of that interfacing in. We just want to try and get a nice line that we can here. And then trim, like I said, 1/4 to 1/2 an inch, because this is where you're going to turn over your top. Turn it into the right side. And we're going to use our chopstick. So next time you're getting sushi or Chinese, grab an extra packet. They're really handy. And just twist it. We'll get a nice little point on there. Okay. I always give it an iron. I then open it up and I give it an iron on this inside seam, and I open it right flat. Because it's double sewed, it's got good hold. Okay. So that is the basis of our cone. I always look at it and I think that it's like an ice cream cone. Hold it like that in your hand, like you're eating an ice cream cone. Okay, so Okay, so I've collected the next part to do the next section. So I use upholstery thread. I like the Gershman brand, easily available in New Zealand, especially Spotlight. And I am going to say Spotlight quite a lot because that is where I get a lot of my supply stuff from. Just looking. Oh, sorry. Okay. So I like to use a curved needle because I find that's actually easier to get in and out with. Thread it through. Only needs a tiny knot. Now I can't see what what's happening with the camera, so I'm hoping I'm in the camera range. Okay, so I only want a tiny little wee knot. And that tiny little wee knot, we're going to start at the seam. So I always come in underneath my seam and I come down to about where the interfacing is. And I pop it through in the middle there. Okay, and that just all tucked in. Okay. Right. I come in. Just going to go up a little weeny bit. Back through that seam. Out there. Okay. Now I loop along the edge of that interfacing because it helps give a guide. Give it a little tug. In and out. Don't have to use a curved needle. You can use a straight sharp needle if you wish to. I just find a curved needle just helps control, and because I have hopefully enough thread on here, I won't have to rethread for the lace, but sometimes you don't always get your measurement right, and that's okay. Okay, so we're just going to loop it through, and as you'll see, it's starting to gather up. Sorry, I have to keep moving it around just to get it comfy position. I'm sitting at the table, of course, to film this, and normally when I'm doing this, I can be wandering around the house, I can be sitting on the couch, because it's quite an easy little task to do. Loop through, and as you can see, I'm kind of following that between the interfacing and that yellow mark that we had made. Okay, when we get near to our centre seam again, come up, come over, we want to go out through the back. Okay, so I always stick my fingers in the middle and just give it a good, so I want to see that where it gathers. And that's the good thing about upholstery thread is you can give it a really good pull and it's not going to snap. Alright, so I can get that as tight as I need to. Okay, just gives us an idea. Put your fingers back in and open them back out. Okay, so our next little step, I'm just going to put that thread to the side. We're going to leave this all still threaded on because we're going to want that shortly. We're going to need wadding, interfacing, teddy bear stuffing, whatever it's called in your country. Hobby fill is what it's called at Spotlight. A lot of places have different names for it, but basically it's just a loose weave, just a fluffy polyester fill. I find the polyester one's great for doing these sort of things. It's nice and lightweight, it falls apart easily. It's not as expensive. If you want to buy the wool one, you're paying double the price, especially especially here. So when it comes out, it's kind of tightwad, and you're actually gonna need more than you think. Like if I scrunch that up, it looked like a lot, but actually it's about the size of a big orange. Okay, and that's what we're gonna need, but we're gonna pull it all apart and we're gonna loosen it up. So we want it nice and lightweight and fluffy so that it layers better in our strawberry. Sorry, there's going to be lots of ums and ahs doing this. It's actually easier when you're talking to people rather than talking to yourself on a camera. Right, so we're just going to pop it in. As you can see, so I'm holding it like I would an ice cream cone. And we're going to use our chopstick. And we're just going to push very gently right down to the bottom. We want to make sure, like you can see it already starting to disappear, compact down. I want to make sure we're getting that little point. See how it's kind of, it's all loosey-goosey? Alright, just got to get it in there. So sometimes you got to pull that out again, and you don't want quite as much. And you get right into that little wee piece. And that's where your chopstick's really good. Okay, not sure if you guys can see that, but honestly, it's right in there. And sometimes I find pushing it in and actually twisting it brings it right down. I'm actually going to swap chopstick because I have these older ones. I've had them for years, and they've been sanded down and varnished, so they're actually really nice and easy to use. As you can see, there's our point. Our point is still looking not too bad. I can never get them 100%. Some people can, but as long as it sits nicely, that is all I am worried about. Tuck him in here. Once he's down, we're just going to grab that other little bit, grab some more. Always fluff it out because it just makes it easier, especially to get it into those little nooks. Fold him in, and then other end, and then just start pushing him down. You will be really surprised how much stuffing goes into this little wee thing. But definitely for this size strawberry, about the size, if you compact it down in your hand, it needs to be about the size of an orange. There's lots of tutorials out there on how to do these. Vonna, the Twisted Stitcher, absolutely awesome tutorial. I have followed hers as well at times. And like I said earlier on, I use a combination of the designers. I also use a combination of Vonna's. You've got to work out what works best for you to have a go at. And like I can fair seal, and I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's like a lump there. We don't want that. So I'm just going to turn that a little bit. I need that to sit nicely. It's kind of like trying to compress it down and get rid of the air. That's better. Well, that line's gone now. A little bit just there. And you'll feel like you're doing this forever. And it does feel like it takes forever. And I'm sorry if that is knocking the camera. It's a bit hard to do it without knocking the camera. So grab another little bit, pull them apart, fluff them out, stuff them in. And go around. So when I kind of get to this stage and I've started pushing right down, I can use my fingers as well because I want to guide it as much as I can, especially into that centre part. I also give it a little tug, just so it starts to get that shape that you want it to. Have a look. Not quite there. So see how it's kind of is, but it's not perfect yet. So I'm just going to open it up again, grab some more stuffing. Pop them in. Oops, we might just halve that for a bit. Okay. I want to make sure our point is still there. Always try and look at it from the front. So the way you want it to hang, the way you want it to lay in your tray. The main part of your design that you want everyone to see. Okay. Okay, so we're just going to give that another little tug. It's getting there. It's starting to look really good. Sometimes I do find my fingers work a little bit easier than trying to use the chopstick. Chopstick's great for when you lower down. Okay, we're almost there on this one. Alright, so we've got it there. I just want to check. Do I like the way it sits? When I run my hands down, does it feel, oh, there's a lump there, I can feel it. Okay, so we're going to undo it a little bit, and we're just going to guide that chopstick. Okay. And this is where you start using just tiny little bit of extras, just to go in, to fill in those gaps. Now you top up here, always have a look at where your creases are. Okay, you want them, but you don't want too many, and you don't want them too tight. It doesn't have to join 100%, but you want it to sit nice because you want it to have that nice look. I know we call it a strawberry, but I always think of like a carrot, where the carrot has a smooth run and then you always get that funny little creases at the top. Okay, that definitely needs a little bit more because there's too many hollow puckers in there. But overall, the general gist is definitely there. Okay, so hopefully this lasts a little bit. If not, it'll be another little bit. I'm just going to keep tucking. Pull that string out the road. Straighten them out. Okay, you can hear them pulling, which is what we want. Just need a tiny bit more. Alright, am I happy with him? If you use walnut shell, it's going to have a wee bit of weight, and you will find it a bit easier to get right to the base. But for these particular ones, I only want the lightweight. And I'm just literally taking little pinches and filling in those little gaps because I don't want those. Another tiny little bit. I'm trying to make sure I get it tucked in under that pull seam. Because otherwise, when I pull it tighter, it will get stuck under my fingers. So that's looking pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. Just a little weeny bit more there. If you use your fingers, you can kind of feel a bit more where there might be a gap in the ear pocket, if you like. It needs to just be tucked in here. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm quite happy. I like my front. My back's a little bit more tighter, which is fine. Pull it around. All right. So that thread is still attached to our curved needle. We still have a very long tail on it. So all I do now is I come opposite, and I'm going to loop it so that it comes in just underneath that line. We're going to go that way. We kind of come around in circle. I say circle, but you're kind of moving around in a circle, but you're going opposite sides. Gosh, it doesn't sound right, does it? I know what I mean. Okay, I always keep my finger in the middle because I want to still keep my shape and my balance. And sometimes when you start pulling, this is when you notice you need to add a little bit more. I'm just going to put a little bit more in that little front piece underneath the stitch there. Okay. Hook him over. Tightening up as we go. Always make sure I'm coming in underneath and then back out. Okay, that looks pretty good. We're going to do another couple just to make sure we've got every little piece. And this is part of why I like using the curved needle as well, because as you can see, it's quite easy to get in the centre part, pull them tight, and get underneath to the next section. So just go round and round, much as you like, and it just feels like it's out of place. Give them a little pull. He looks pretty good. So go a couple more times that way. It does take a little bit to get used to a curved needle if you've not used one before, but honestly, once you've got the handle of them, they are so easy to use. Okay, how do we look? Pretty good. Quite happy with that. Right, I'm just going to tie that off now. And just go round, over under, and give them a tug. Now before I cut them off, and just check, am I really happy with that? I can still juggle him around a little bit because he is polyfill. Okay. My little scissors are over on the other table, so I'm just going to cut that one off with the bigger ones. So there's my basis for my strawberry. It looks pretty good. Okay, so out of all that big orange of stuffing, I have probably a tiny plum left in reality. Didn't quite have enough, so not a lot compared to what we started with, which is good. Sometimes you can get it all in, sometimes you can have a little bit extra. Okay, so then we're going to do the lace on the top. Right, so curved needle again. Sorry, it's getting rid of all the little bits and pieces. So I want double the length of my lace. Now my lace is 10 inches, 25 centimeters. Drop my needle just about then. Okay, so we're going to rethread it again. Tie a knot. Just loop it around 5 or 6 times. So you want a reasonable knot. Don't want too big, but I do want that knot to hold. Right, so grab my lace. On this particular lace, it's really good because it doesn't matter whether it's front or back. So I'm going to just run, I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but in between, there's like a little netting between the lacy bit here and the bit here, and I just run my needle in and out through that. Once again, that curve just helps glide it along quite nicely. In and out. My goodness. Okay, give it a little pull, it's going to gather up. You don't want to be too small, but you don't want to be too close to them, together, but you don't want to leave them gigantic parts either. Give it another pull. Might seem silly like doing this little extra bits like this, but it actually helps with the finished product. And I'll show you why as we get going. Okay. We are almost there. Sorry, I was going to stop and start this, speed it up, but I'm not that tech savvy. Getting better, but not that tech savvy to be able to do that. Okay. So we are at the end. Now, before I loop the two edges together, so I can still pull that into a nice tight curve, I can still gather it around, is what I like to do is I like to place it on top of my strawberry. I'm just going to pop my needle down. So I find my back seam of my strawberry, and I'm going to pop one there to hold it around, and as you can see, like, there's this big flat piece. We don't want that. Just want to gather that up a little bit more. And I just want to make sure it's going to be a good fit. Doesn't matter if it overloops a little wee bit, we can still do that. Alright, then I turn it over. so that it's the opposite way. The underside, well, what is going to be my underside is now on the outside. Grab my needle, I come back through the middle, and I then run a seam, a little bit tricky on the hats, but run a seam up and down through the center part here. Okay, flip it over again before I do that last bit. Double check, is it going to sit where I want it to? It's going to go around the middle. Here's my seam there. I'm going to hold that. It's going to look great at the front. That's what we want to check. Beautiful. Just needs to be a little bit tighter there. Okay. So before I go any further on mine, I bring that back to that center, hold where that seam is, and I just use normal pins, sewing pins, and I kind of hold that one in there, and I come around and I just want to poke about half a dozen in, because I want to make sure at the front, this is the front, that I get a nice looking curve. It can be a bit more bunched at the back if that's what I want, or at the front, but I want to play with it a little wee bit on how I'd like it to sit. Okay, I'm just going to take that back one out again, because I think we've got, we need too much there. There we go. Fold it, manipulate it. Broke my fingernail this morning, and it's my one that I like to use, as it always happens, doesn't it? That I like to use, you know, normally my pickup finger. Okay, so then we're going to have a look. Is that laying how I want it for my outer layer of lace, or my bottom layer? I quite like that. Okay, so here's our thread still sitting at the bottom here, and we are still attached to our strawberry. So we're just going to come in under there. Let me get close enough that you guys can see this, and we just want to do a little hook stitch. We're just going to go in and under, and we're coming up in between these little bits here. Not all of them, we just want to do a couple of times, especially that back one. We're going to go over and under, and then we come back and under, and we're going to come up over here where this little wee fold is. Make sure that's where I want it. Yep. Okay. Sorry, my hands are probably getting in the road. I can't feel my needle. Anyway, there he is. You can see him poking up now. Okay, come in, and then we're just going to go through there. It's only because we've got those few extra layers on this one. Alright, in and under. So then we're going to come back to this middle piece. We're going to go through. Just need to do another loop on that one, I think. I want to come up because I want to catch. This is where you have to have patience. You just need to guide it through. I'm going to come up. Try not to get it in a knot. And then go back down and just loop in that little wee bit. Sometimes I find putting it on the table just helps guide it. So we're now hooked in here and we're hooked on here. So we're going to go underneath again, and then we're coming up and we're aiming for here where my thumb is. I can feel it. Sometimes it does take a few goes to get it to come through. Okay, it's come through, I can just stretch that lace over, ducking back down, and just guide them in there. Okay, we're going to loop that little piece. So it just catches, so it just stops it from going like this when you've made your strawberry completed, and looking just helps finish it off. And I like using the same colour as I did on my other thread, just or colour that matches your first layer of lace. If your first layer of lace is red, then use a little red thread just so it helps hide it. And under, through the next one, and then again, curved needle, and just want to catch that little edge. Go through twice, and they're only little wee nicks, they're not big stitches. Okay, and we're going to come through to this one here now. Looking pretty good. So once I've got it halfway around, I can start taking these other pins out, because you can start to see, one, where you've been, and two, that you haven't missed any loops. That one there's fine, that's the loop for those. Okay, and through there, and through there. We're going to go in through here, and again. So basically catching them twice on each one. I'm just going to come up here. Right, so then I always make sure I go back down, and I'm going to come back up where that seam is in the background. Right, so because I've attached at this end, I haven't attached in the middle here. So I come down there, do one more loop on that back seam, and then I normally just come up to the middle. Right, and I just go probably about half a dozen times, just like we did before, and we're just catching those edges. And that lace is just catching just on the top of that green, for me, at the top of my strawberry. And that just helps pull it a little bit tighter again. Doesn't need to be perfect, just needs to be enough that it's going to hold it down. Right, I always just stop, have a look, am I happy with that? That's pretty good. Okay, we're just going to tie that off, because this colour is not going to work for this. We're just going to hook that around there and around there. Give it a good tug. Stand him up. Helps just squish anything down. That looks pretty good. Right, we're going to cut that one off. Okay, that is the end of that thread. This is our strawberries so far. So we have one layer of lace, and now we're going to put, the second layer of lace on. So on these I've done two different kind of ways. So on this one here I've not attached it at the edges, outer edges. I've only attached it in the center, so it gives it a bit more movement. This one here I attached the outer edge down, so it looks like it's it just gives it less movement, but it also looks very effective. So it's a personal choice. I thought I'd show both ways, and that way then you can decide whether you want it to look a bit more wavy or you want it to be a bit more settled in. Okay, so this is another 10-inch piece. Always use, I find I use two different thicknesses of lace. So this one, grab another piece, same thickness, just different colour. Like it's half the size, so it gives that nice effect. Okay, so I'm not going to need as much. We're going to do the same thing. We are going to loop it around, but I'm only really going to need about 3/4 of this. But we'll start. So we need to find a thread that's going to be close. Grey. Or a green. I think it might end up being the grey. Ooh. Hold on a moment, I'll just find. Right, so I've decided to go with the grey thread. Because it's not going to be seen later anyway. Oh. Okay, so on this one, I'm going to loop it through these runs here. So always miss that edge one, come in through here. Oh, not quite hook that on the needle properly. Loop it through again. I'm just going to tie a knot basically around that one there. Then we're just going to go in and out each of the holes. Right, so once again I'm going to find my back seam, just going to fold that over, I'm going to sit that about there, I'm going to pin it, and then we're just going to gather it up and pull it to how I want it to sit. And the reason why I don't suddenly sew it all together is because, I want to make sure that it's where I want it. Okay. And pin. Okay, I am just going to add a few more loops in that one. Sorry, it does get where they do roll around a wee bit on you, and you'll be dropping and picking up quite regularly. That is not too bad there. Right, another pin. Okay, so that one there was our original start one. This one here. So I'm going to trim that 1.5 holes away. Fold it over. My little balance there. I'm going to stick another pin in. Okay, so that's pretty good. That's about where I want it all to be. Okay. So once again, this is where the little curved needle comes in really handy, because you just want to nick a little bit in there and up through the edge. It's not about taking big stitches, it's about little wee ones. I'm just going to whip that seam together. Try not to poke my finger and make terrible words on a Flosstube. Okay. And yes, occasionally I do catch the edge of the beads. Right, just for at the back here, I am just going to tack that down. Alright, because at the back it's not seen on my strawberry. Okay, it's curved in there, just pop them in a little wee bit. And push them. Now we're trying to get through a few layers here, so we're going to go through, and we're going to come back up here in the middle. So, there we go. Just twist and pull. Okay, then all I'm going to do is tack this little edge here around the centre. And I always do that part first, because then I decide when I take my pins out as to whether I want to have the edge of the other lace, the second lace down. And this is why I always start at the seam too, because then if I start at the seam, then I know where I've been, and if I get back round to the seam, I know I've made it all the way around. Yeah, sometimes you're hand sewing something and you can't see your start and your finish if it blends in, which is what you want it to do, but you also need to know where you started. You could put a certain colour pin at the back if you wanted to and have the others go around. I just use what I've got, or what comes off the tomato. It doesn't matter if it slides off. We can just thread it back on. There we go. And honestly, I drop them all the time, or my thread comes out all the time. Probably could have done with a little bit longer lace. There we are, we're back round to the back. Just going to give it a little tug. I think I need a little bit more over there. Just want to check. So I will take my pins out. Okay, now I will run my hand and flick it up just to make sure it is, and just as I suspected. There we go. If I use the chopstick, you'll be able to see the chopstick come right underneath there. So that's where I've missed. And I'll just come back this way a little wee bit and catch those. Don't want to lose that edging again. Alrighty ho, I'm quite happy with that now. Just might grab that a little bit. Wonderful. Okay, tie it off. Beautiful. Honestly, your little embroidery scissors are great for cutting thread rather than the big scissors. So there we go. There's our lacy parts. Nice and easy. So now, and I like the fact when it's polyfill because I can still play with it, manipulate it if I want, and get him how I want him to look. Let me get rid of that piece. Okay, so now I have to decide, do I want red, burgundy, do I want green? Honestly, or do I want both? I think the red. Doesn't match. I've never been able to match them 100% unless I pick my ribbons first and then match my thread to it. But if you stitch to the called for colours, sometimes that just doesn't work out. So I think on this one, actually nice. We're going to do red. So, I have my little 13-inch roller, or 14-inch, sorry, ruler, and I want 1, 2, and then I go 2.5. So we are definitely going to not need grey. I have a burgundy. I want it a little bit darker because I want to actually see where I'm going with this. Now, we'll thread, curve needle again. At this stage when you go to do the ribbon, you can use a straight needle. I prefer to use the curve, whichever way I'm doing it. And I will have way more cotton than I'm going to need for this. I'm just going to tie it off, pull them through. And occasionally you get one big knot. Don't want that. Right, we're almost at the last little part, and that is attaching our ribbon. This to do a knot at the end. Perfect. Rightio. We're just going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of our scissors. Get rid of our roller. Right, so the way I find it easiest to do is to bring it round. I only want it like 2 finger widths. And then twist the bottom leg. Bring him back up. Loop him down. Twist. Bring him up. Him down, twist. Do the same all the way along. You can make your loops bigger. Like that's going to be pretty good size. These ones are slightly bigger, so I could make this bigger. These guys here are about 2.5 fingers. On this one here, these are about 3, maybe a little bit too wide. So that's why I kind of like the 2. Don't want it too big, but I don't want it too small either. Hello. So loop, pinch, twist. Come pull it in, loop, pinch, twist. Probably going to get a cat visit in a minute. She's now on the edge of the table pushing everything towards me. Kitty is wanting attention. Okay, always bring your last one looped in and tucked in and down the bottom. Now this is where it gets fun because you always get one that is going to pop out. So, start again. I'm showing you all the things that go wrong as I'm doing this because it will happen to you too. Okay, so you need to know how to fix and what to do. I'm just going to grab one of those. So twist. Bring him down and twist. Okay, bring him up. Doesn't actually matter if they're not perfectly sized, it's about getting that pinch. I've just missed that. And doesn't help when I have a cat deciding that pushing on me is a good thing to do when you're filming. I will bring Kitty up for the end part, if she's still around. Hey Kitty. So you might decide that you only want 6 loops. You might want more loops, so you can add more ribbon as you go if you need to. Oops. And as you can see, it's quite easy to miss that little gathering. Stamp, pinch, up, twist, pinch, down. So once I'm happy with it, which sometimes it can take that 2 or 3 goes, there's another one there about to pop out, so we're just actually going to put him there. And I can see that one there. See? So you can just pinch him, twist him, and pull him down. Because your ribbon at the top does not have to be perfect. Just needs to be loops and attached. So this is why I use one of these. Flip him in. There you go. There's another stray. Twist him. Grab him. Loop him in there. So now I can manipulate a little wee bit how I want them to look because he's going to go on there. Okay. Just checking it was still recording. Right, so I'm going to try and grab in here while it's still on this with my needle. Pull it through. Grab that one to the back. Take it off. And I'm just going to put a few stitches in the edge and hope that I catch everything. And that you keep your thread on your needle. And as you can see, happens to me, it always comes off. Right here. Okay, looped in, grab it, pinch it with my fingers, just loop it in. I want to make sure everything's going to look reasonable. Okay, so then we're going to take the centre of our strawberry, and I always put it once again towards, relay it to the front, how you'd like it to look, and then I'm going to loop it through that centre piece. That centre piece is going to sit in the centre, and I'm going to come towards the back. I'm going to loop it that way. This is just about getting it attached onto here. Okay, then I'm going to pull it that way. I'm going to come back. I don't want a big thread. This is not the daintiest little part of it. There might be an easier way to do this, but honestly this is what I have found that works for me. Because I don't want my ribbon looking perfect. I want it to look you know, a strawberry's greenery in the wild never is completely symmetrical. It is always crazy looking. I'm going to come through that one. Hope you guys can still see what I'm doing. I like to hook it through every now and then because I want it to be secure. That's why you play with it, because that'll be no good once we're finished and we've put everything away, and that's okay. It's the end of the ribbon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push that out of the road. I'm going to tuck it on here underneath, and we're going to attach them. Find out where our thread is. Our thread is there. Hook them, attach. Alright, we're almost there. Oh, and every now and then you do that too. You catch the bottom of the strawberry. Just going to hook them on. If you've got cats like I have, these things will be played with left and right. And you want to make sure that's going to stay. Okay, that's pretty good. I can give it a bit of a tug. Alright, I'm just going to go through a couple more times. So, just need to rethread, and then we will be there. We want to finish a strawberry. Okay, come through because I want to grab that little bit there. So make sure you don't catch those other little bits. Okay. Now that's pretty good. All right. And because there was a sewing thread, easy to break. Excuse me. Right, so that, ladies and gentlemen, is our finished strawberry. All assembled, all decorated at the top, and our ribbon. There we go. That little piece there is going to annoy me. We'll see what happens over the next few days. But simple, does take a little bit of time. Yes, you might need to practice a couple of times, but by the time you get to your sixth one, you'll have it down packed, and then when you do your next lot, you'll be all good. So here we go. Here is 3 completed strawberries. That's the other one of the set of 5. Okay, so that is the end of my little tutorial. I would just like to acknowledge, and I know I have earlier on, and say thank you to Vonna the Twisted Stitcher for her videos that she puts out about finishing. And for the instructions that are in the booklets supplied by the designers, Blackbird Designs always give lovely clear instructions, and so does Erica Michael's designs, especially for strawberries. And like I've said earlier, I do like to use a combo of them all to do my strawberries, and it is just finding what works for you. So I hope that this little tutorial has helped somebody out. And if you were at the Christchurch retreat at the weekend and took my finishing class, thank you, and I hope that this video does also help you guys out, so that you've got something to go back to when you want to do another strawberry. Thank you for watching, and happy stitching and happy finishing.